I want you to do something for me. Think of the last argument you had online. The last debate that made your blood boil. The last time that you were absolutely, unquestionably certain that you were right and that they were wrong. Now, here's the uncomfortable part. What if you were both right and both wrong? We live in an age of certainty. Swipe left, swipe right, like or dislike, agree or disagree. Our digital world has trained us to sort everything into neat little boxes. But it's absolutely killing our ability to think. And here's what I've realized. The most interesting conversations I've ever had weren't the ones where someone agreed with me. No, they were the ones where someone said, I see it differently, and here's why. The moments that actually changed my mind weren't the ones where someone proved me wrong. They were the ones where someone showed me that I was asking the wrong questions entirely. So today, I'm not going to stand here and tell you what to think about politics or social issues or the right way to see the world. Because the truth is, I don't have all the answers. No one does. But maybe, if we stop shouting long enough to listen, we can start finding better questions together. So let's explore the gray. Not because the answers are unclear, but because reality itself is painted in shades that we've long forgotten how to see. When was the last time you genuinely changed your mind about something? Not something small, like from one brand of coffee to another. I mean, a real substantive belief. For most people, when that happens, it feels almost physical, like something shifted inside of you, like the ground moved a little. And for most of us, when we face that discomfort, we don't address the information. Instead, we dismiss it. We find a flaw in the source, and we retreat to our corner of the internet, where everyone already agrees with us. We don't do this because we're stupid. No, we do this because the human brain is extraordinarily good at one thing in particular, which is protecting the stories that we tell about ourselves. And that is where the black and white mindset's born. Not from hatred or from ignorance, but from comfort. But comfort, as it turns out, can be one of the most dangerous places a thinking person can live. Growing up as a student without a gaming computer was a huge pain. When I was in grade 7, I got addicted to Roblox. And I'm sure all of you guys can relate. My computer struggled to put 60 FPS on the screen, even when I turned it down to the lowest graphics. By then, I had begged my parents again and again to buy me a gaming computer, or a computer with a 3090 GPU. Because the naive me thought that any computer that could run games smoothly was a great computer. And so under that context, I became a MacBook hater. Because the naive me looked down on the integrated GPU and the goofy macOS. That was me 4 years ago. The me now, the average grade 11 student, suffering to ace, suddenly became a huge MacBook lover. Something durable, efficient, and light is my dream combo for productivity. I could even sit at the library studying all day with a MacBook. And that's when I finally realized something. Neither version of me was wrong, nor absolutely right. The MacBook is still one of the worst machines out there when it comes to gaming, and get absolutely smoked by a gaming laptop. Yet, a gaming laptop would be a 3-kilogram block that absolutely shatters your spine with a laughable 30-minute lifespan, while a MacBook is just more convenient and longer lasting. This is where I learned that every coin has two sides. There is no absolute greatest, but whichever one suits the situation better is the best one. Learning to accept the truth that both are great machines, yet neither are perfect, tells us that nothing is truly black and white. That shift from this is the best to this is the best that I need right now is one of the hardest cognitive moves a person can make. It requires you to retire a belief that's once served you well. But what happens when that same complexity from everyone around you gets you labeled not just as wrong, but as dangerous? That question sent me down an unexpected rabbit hole. And I started thinking about why, in almost every story ever told, Someone who starts on the right side ends up crossing into the other. Why do heroes become villains? So I started looking into the psychology of fictional villains, and I found that somehow their personalities align more with mine, and even more with the world itself. Most people can't really empathize with heroes, nor can they think from a hero's perspective. It often feels like heroes were created simply to bring hope to people. But villains, on the other hand, villains feel more like distorted humanity. More like the kind of characters that we can actually relate to. I've always been interested in the psychology of fictional villains. I feel like if someone becomes bad, there's usually a reason for it. Sometimes it's arbitrary, and sometimes it's circumstantial. And sometimes it's simply because they don't fit in or don't conform, and so they're labeled as different. It often feels like the moment an individual develops a different sense of self-awareness, it gets labeled as betrayal. And maybe unity is necessary in the beginning for the bigger picture, and deviation can seem dangerous. But isn't that also kind of an erasure of humanity? And if humanity is erased, what is the purpose of unity? And what outcome does the final unity even serve? Humans weren't created to become forests of identical mindless trees. Diversity exists even in animals too. And if humans lose that, then maybe the species is truly at its end. I don't know what humans are ultimately changing into, but it certainly can't be a species with only one set of experiences, one way of thinking, and a single perspective. The villain isn't just a storytelling device. It's a mirror. It's what happens when a system decides that belonging requires total agreement. And that same complexity often lives into far more personal in how we motivate ourselves. It is in people's nature to only work hard when there's pressure. Procrastination, being such a widespread habit, proves this. You can tell yourself that you'll start early, plan out assignments in advance, and even block time on your calendar. Yet, the real productivity only begins when the clock starts ticking. The night before a deadline, focus sharpens in a way that it never has weeks before. Nothing about your ability changes, but you just work better when the stakes are higher. The same pattern shows up in school. From grade 9 to the first semester of grade 12, everyone is grinding for marks and for university offers. Then, acceptances come out, and the drive fades almost overnight. Why? Because the pressure is gone. We often like to believe that we are motivated by discipline and passion, but more often than not, it is expectation and consequence that truly unlock what we are already capable of. The black and white take is simple. Procrastination is bad, discipline is good. But the gray says something far more interesting. Maybe pressure isn't the enemy of good work, but one of its vital ingredients. Maybe the goal isn't to eliminate pressure, but to understand how it functions in us. Mind you, that's not a permission slip to leave everything to last minute. That's more of an invitation to get to know yourself more honestly. And that honesty extends to the people that we choose to keep in our lives. As I grew older, making long-term and honest friendships became harder, not easier. When I was young, I met people without much history. But now, I carry years of experiences that have shaped my habits, values, and the way I see the world. In the beginning, a friendship can feel effortless. Everything just seems to click. But over time, small differences can begin to surface. Differences in opinions, priorities, and perspectives. But by then, we've already built memories together, shared laughter, and shared secrets. So it becomes difficult to decide whether or not to let go. I tell myself that maybe it doesn't matter, maybe it's just a minor difference. And sometimes that is true. We can adjust, and we can compromise. But when those small differences slowly grow into something bigger, I'm left wondering if we're growing together, or whether I'm just holding on because I'm afraid to lose while I hold dear. And in that uncertainty, I notice myself becoming slightly different depending on who I'm with. Not because I'm being dishonest, but because I'm still trying to protect something that still means a lot to me. And it's not just the people around us that change. We change too. Sometimes the hardest relationships to navigate isn't the ones with someone else, but with ourselves. As an immigrant, I experienced this after moving to Canada. This gray area felt like a loss of identity. Too foreign for here, but also too foreign back home. The gray consumed my entire life as I struggled to say goodbye to what I've always known to make room for the opportunities that lay ahead. Grappling with the difficulty of loss and change in our personal lives looks different for everyone. Facing that suffering, taking that step to move on, is that disrespectful to the person you once were? That time in your life and the things that you've experienced? Or is it necessary for the survival and growth of your being? We've all struggled with the mourning of the past and hope for the future, the person that we wish to become. And if the person that I am today, the person that brought me here, is built from the sacrifices that my younger self made, then I'm eternally grateful, and I hope that deep in my heart, he still lives inside me. You know what's funny, actually? Actually, let's do a quick experiment. How many of you guys have ever typed something online that you would never say to someone else's face in person? Raise up your hand if you have ever done that. Keep them up, look around you, look at your neighbors. We're all keyboard warriors. Almost every single one of us. And none of us is wearing a villain costume. We're all just people in gray areas, which eventually spill beyond the personal life into conversations that society is too uncomfortable to sit with. Imagine a city with two public squares. In the first square, anyone climbed the steps to speak. Some gossiped about neighbors, others talked about the weather. At first, it was lively, but gradually, people realized that the insults attracted the most attention. So the insults became louder and more vicious. The people with the biggest voices began shouting at each other. And those with something genuinely meaningful to say stood in the corner and opened their mouths, only to find that no one could hear them. In the end, the square was filled with nothing more than a noise and a crowd that no longer knew what it was arguing about. The second square is different. Guards stand at the entrance, and before anyone can speak, they must submit their speech for inspection. Some words are forbidden, and certain topics are not allowed. The guards say this is to maintain order and prevent people from hurting one another. At first, it was quiet. No one argues, and no one insults. But slowly, people realize that most of what they want to say is not allowed. And so little by little, people stop coming. And the square grows emptier and emptier, till only the guards remain, announcing to the air, "Today, the square is once again harmonious." Now, which one of these two squares would you choose? I actually don't know. All I know is that whichever one you choose, it's not going to be perfect. This is the gray area of the freedom of speech. None of these issues have a standard solution, but at least when we stop pretending that the answers are simple, only then can we move one step closer to the real dialogue. One step closer to the real questions. That's it. That's the whole ask. Now, I need to be honest. What you just heard, that wasn't all me. In fact, most of it wasn't me at all. Almost every section after my opening was written by a different person. A procrastinator who recognized themselves in it. A person quietly grieving a friendship that's slowly changing shape. An immigrant with a foot in both worlds, afraid to be part of neither. All people with different experiences, different ages, and different lives. But you couldn't tell, could you? Their voices wove together so seamlessly that it sounded like one coherent speech. Not because they all thought the same thing. They didn't. And not because they all came from the same place. They absolutely did not. But because they were all exploring the same truths from different angles. And that is the point. That is the whole point. Gray area thinking doesn't require agreement. It doesn't require that we arrive at the same conclusions. It just requires that we stay in the conversation long enough to hear something that we never would have expected. These contributors, without knowing each other, without coordinating, without being told what to say, we built something together that I could have never built alone. There's a concept in Japanese aesthetics called ma. Often, it gets translated as negative space, but that doesn't quite capture it. Ma is the pause between notes in music. It's the silence that gives sound its meaning. It's the empty space in a painting that lets your eyes wander. It's the idea that what is absent can be just as meaningful as what is present. So the uncertainty, the not knowing, isn't an obstacle between you and understanding, but a part of understanding. And so the next time someone tells you that complexity is just a weakness, or that nuance just an excuse for not picking a side, remember this speech. Remember that it took different people with different lives to say what needed to be said. So I'll ask you one final time. Think of the last argument that made your blood boil. The last time that you were absolutely certain that you were right. Now ask yourself, what would it take to be curious instead of certain? That question, that shift from certainty to curiosity might be one of the most important ones any of us ever learns to ask. Thank you.